play the Longhorns at the Stockyards just outside of downtown Fort Worth, but the Horned Frogs are what they come to cheer for inside Amon G. Carter Stadium. And the fans here have become so used to winning, it's hard to come up with a feat that they haven't already seen. But a win today over UNLV would lead to a third consecutive conference title, and that has never been done in TCU history. When this TCU team lost its season opener at Baylor, and that defense ranked #1 in the country the last 3 years, gave up 50 points in doing so, the question was heard not only here, but throughout the college football country. Would this be the season that Gary Patterson's Horned Frogs took that step back? 6 consecutive wins later and a 6-0 mark in the Mountain West Conference, we can say this is a team that's persevered and is 1 win away from winning the Mountain West Conference title. It's senior day here today, Sean King. 19 seniors today being honored, but a sophomore quarterback, a big reason why this has all happened.
Coming into the season, Gary Patterson would have been happy with Casey just managing the game. The young quarterback has developed into so much more. With a big performance today, can actually eclipse a lot of Andy Dalton's single-season passing records here at TCU.
24 touchdowns, not bad, and how about 24 consecutive wins, conference wins, and that's what would happen if TCU finds a way to knock off UNLV on senior day. The All-American linebacker Tank Carter with his son Cash Carter. Emotions high and 1 win away from a conference crown. It's UNLV and TCU right now. Touchdown TCU. The Frogs have beaten Boise at their own game. Senior Day special in any stadium throughout the country, and in November, early December, but especially here at TCU. 45 wins for this senior class. Gary Patterson just produces unbelievable class after unbelievable class. This is the 4th consecutive class here at Horned Frogs that will lead as the all-time winningest. This year's class at 45 as they take the field. The seniors for one final time at Amon G. Carter Stadium, and win number 46 would mean that the Horned Frogs have won 3 consecutive Mountain West Conference titles. Nice way to exit the Mountain West Conference as TCU getting ready to play in the Big 12 next season. UNLV Rebels, they have stuck with some very good teams here this season. Gave Boise State fits. They were leading San Diego State 14-0 last week before falling in that game, and getting the visitors treatment here in Fort Worth. The stadium under renovation, so 2 trailers behind the stadium. The temporary locker rooms, they walk out of those and walk down the steps and come into Amon G. Carter Stadium, and the faithful here, they can't wait for the stadium to be done here. Well over $100 million renovation. We're feeling it up here in the press box, and it's going to be beautiful here in TCU for a team that has set the standard very high for winning recently. Paul Burmeister alongside Sean King, and really, when you look at this TCU team here, Sean, the only thing we knew about the offense as it said goodbye to Andy Dalton and Jeremy Curley and Marcus Cannon was that the running back class or the running back trio should be very good, and they haven't let us down.
Gary Patterson has an abundance of riches at this position. I say this without exaggeration. They are as good of a group of running backs as anyone has in the country. Wayman James is that home run hitter, averaging 8 yards per carry. Kind of one of those one-cut runners. If you give him daylight, it can turn into a big play at any time. Ed Wesley is the blue-collar runner of the bunch. Powerful, low center of gravity, very violent and aggressive at the point of attack. Does a great job on 3rd down of pass protecting for Casey Paul Hall. Matthew Tucker's the bulldozer. He's the guy with a nose for the goal line. 10 touchdowns, leads this group. You're going to see him in the short yardage goal line situations. Does a good job of finding the end zone.
And Taylor Barnhill, the quarterback for UNLV, getting his 2nd start here this afternoon, Sean. And Casey Paul Hall has been a constant for the Horned Frogs. Instability, the theme at quarterback for the Rebels.
They're still looking for a guy to step up and really supplement himself as the guy. Taylor Barnhill is actually a guy Coach said would be an H-back next year, but he's going to get an opportunity today to play some quarterback. Very good running the football. Not sure how successful he's going to be throwing it, but he's told all of his friends in Las Vegas to make sure they DVR this game just in case.
A special coin toss here at Amon G. Carter Stadium, as this afternoon a strong emotional connection between the Dallas-Fort Worth area and the visiting UNLV Rebels. For more on the Bryce Staldy story, here is Anthony Herron.
It is an emotional atmosphere on each sideline that they're experiencing senior day, but a bit of a joyous tinge to it for UNLV. Most of the Rebel fans Remember that Bryce Saldi experienced a severe brain injury a couple of summers ago when he was a linebacker on his way to potentially being a star for the program. He's been rehabbing just 20 miles away from here in Southlake, Texas, his hometown. And I talked to he and his father, Jay, before the game. They're both a bit emotional about being out here because it's the first time that Bryce Saldi has been able to see the majority of his teammates in person. So this coin toss, it is most certainly a joyous occasion for most of the Rebel teammates as well.
There we see Bryce Saldi, Jay Saldi, his father, the former Dallas Cowboys tight end, and what an unbelievable story here this afternoon that's outside of football. And the football is TCU, ranked number 18 in the BCS at 9-2, playing host to the UNLV Rebels here in Fort Worth. The TCU will receive here. See the offense first. You just outlined the three running backs, Ed Wesley and Wayman James and Matthew Tucker, and of course the star quarterback Casey Paul Hall getting the start once again, and Ross Evans, senior kicker, will be in the lineup for field goals and also extra points, but will be out of the lineup for kickoffs. He was arrested earlier this month, and he will be punished by not being able to kick off this afternoon. Ryan DiNucci will kick off in his place, the walk-on. Kickoff duties, but again, the field goal and extra points handled by Ross Evans. TCU won the toss, deferred. UNLV going to get the football, and we're going to see a quarterback that we haven't seen much of this year, Sean. And he was actually playing some H-back this season. Taylor Barnhill, one start at New Mexico. Been going back and forth between taking snaps and also being an H-back this season.
Both of UNLV's normal starting quarterbacks, Caleb Herring and Sean Riley, both limited today because of injury. Caleb probably won't play, so Taylor gets an opportunity to quarterback this UNLV Rebel squad.
Deontay Purvis for the Rebels out across the 20, but only to the 22-yard line. UNLV Rebels up front. How about this? Not a senior offensive lineman on the roster. And from center to left guard to left tackle, they are all freshmen. Brett Boyko, a great story we'll dive into here this afternoon. Backs and wide receivers, Philip Payne is the leader, number 4. Recognized for his body control down the field. Mr. Touchdown. All-time leader here, UNLV, in receiving touchdowns. Taylor Barnhill's second start of his career after starting at New Mexico earlier this season. Comes out firing. There's Philip Payne. Across the 20, Johnny Fobbs, the senior here, running him out of bounds. And Taylor Barnhill, what a unique story at quarterback. First game we've done here this season where we've seen a quarterback who has spent time also at H-back for his team during the year.
And Paul, he's a big kid. He's athletic. They like his athleticism, not a polished thrower, so I think they're going to keep it very simple from a passing standpoint, but they do think Taylor can make some plays in the running game.
Second down 8. It's a Rebel offense that is led by the run game. Barnhill keeping himself spinning and running hard. We were told he was an excellent runner. That's a gain of 7, and it'll bring up 3rd down and 1.
And he adds a different dynamic to this offense than Caleb Herring, who really is not that involved in the running game. They really feel like Taylor can have some success. He's a big kid, very difficult to tackle in one-on-one situations because of his strength and size.
If there is a strength of this UNLV offense, it is the rushing offense. Deonze Bradford, Tim Cornette really emerged as the season come along here for the Rebels. Right up the middle is Tim Cornette, and he is stuffed. Stanley Lapunga there. Devin Johnson is there, so too to Karen Cuba, no gain.
And Paul, this is one of the things I was concerned about. You have a quarterback who actually doesn't do a lot of ball handling because he doesn't play quarterback full time. If you saw a little trouble with the mesh there, something we keep our eye on today, but good job of doubling TCU defensive end Stanley Lapunga, not allowing him to get in the backfield.
After Gary Patterson told us his defense in the last game against Colorado State was, quote, terrible. 3 and out, good way to start. Chase Lanford to punt for UNLV, and Ed Wesley, one of the 3 very talented running backs for the Horned Frogs, back deep. Wesley lets it hit at the 34-yard line and just rolls out of bounds. A Lanford punt of 41 yards with no return. TCU offense up front, we have seniors at both tackles, Jeff Olson on the left side and Robert Deck on the right. At wide receiver, Josh Boyce, over 900 yards, leads the Mountain West Conference in receiving yards. And Jonathan Jones, the senior, getting his only start this season. We'll also see plenty of Sky Dawson.
In TCU's last contest, they came out very sluggish against Colorado State. Gary Patterson said he was anxious to see how they would start on offense. Really wanted to come out and be aggressive early in this football game.
Ed Wesley, the tailback behind Ball Hall in the shotgun formation, 1st and 10. Ball Hall to the air right away, right to his senior, getting his first start. Jonathan Jones with the catch and the pivot and the Horned Frog gain of 7. UNLV defense led up front by James Dunlap, number 2 in the Mountain West Conference in tackles for loss. In the middle, Nate Carter, one of 2 team captains. And in the back end, Sidney Hodge, known as the top cover guy for the Rebels. Casey Ball Hall put it on the money. Josh Boyce couldn't come down with it.
And Paul, on a day like this where it's raining a little bit, it's a little slick, the grass doesn't have as much traction as it normally does. The offense has an advantage when they're throwing the football. Those wideouts know where they're going. The DBs do not. But as a wide receiver, you really have to focus on your fundamentals and make sure you look the football in, because it can easily go through your hands like it just did to Josh Boyce.
Horned Frogs now facing 3rd down and 3. 3rd down has been a friend of TCU. 53% on 3rd down. 5th best in the nation and easily the best in the Mountain West Conference. Toss pitch to Ed Wesley. Does he have the corner? No, he does not. The Rebel defense. John Lotulelei chasing him down, and a loss of 2.
Lotulelei was a guy who had a big game in his first career start against Boise State. Had 13 tackles in that contest, and they've kept him in the lineup since then. A junior college transfer who plays with the type of intensity that Bobby Hauck looks for. And
he's gotten better and better. 2nd on the team with 53 tackles. The coach is very excited about the potential.
Anson Kelton punt. And with the fair catch, Eric Tuilo Mavaha. Pair of 3 and outs. The defense is standing out so far. We are scoreless at Fort Worth. The good news is it's not too cold here in Fort Worth, Texas. Temperature a little over 60 degrees. It is wet. We have some rain. Forecast calls for rain throughout the afternoon. And the Geico the first down line is brought to you by Geico. We have 1st down and 10 for the Rebel offense. 2nd possession for UNLV with Taylor Barnhill, his 2nd career start, leading the way. Tim Cornette right up the middle, still going. Dragging some Horned Frog tacklers with him for a gain of 8. As for the specifics of that TCU defense, up front, number 90, Stanley Mapunga has emerged as a force off the edge. Number 2 in the Mountain West Conference in sacks, and also leads this team in tackles for loss. A couple of seniors starting. Tank Carter, the returning All-American, and Chris Gardner, a senior, getting his start here. You'll also see a lot of number 51, Kenny Kane. Speaking of seniors, Johnny Fobbs from right here in Fort Worth. Never started a game until this year. Has started every single one this season. Right back to the ground game and picking up a Rebel 1st down. Tim Cornette with a gain of 4.
And you mentioned Johnny Fobbs. TCU safeties do a really good job of being aggressive in run support. Fobbs, along with Takir and Cuba, are very violent hitters as they approach that line of scrimmage. Very interested to see what happens in some of those one-on-one battles with Tim Cornette and Deonze Bradford.
Johnny Fobbs starting his 1st game at Baylor, called out by Gary Patterson after the game for missing tackles. He himself said it was embarrassing, the kind of performance they had. His emergence, one of the reasons why this defense is once again strong. Michael Johnson taking it in stride. Gain of 12 and a UNLV 1st down.
And on film, you evaluate this UNLV offense. I like Michael Johnson. He's here on the inside in the slot. You know, he's just a guy that makes plays. Going to be matched up a lot of times today one-on-one with either Jason Verrett or Greg McCoy, those TCU corners. I think he can make some plays if Taylor Barnhill can consistently get him the football.
Michael Johnson, 29 catches coming into this game for his career, over 1,000 yards. And the Rebels now working inside of Horned Frog territory and working with a little bit of issue there with the The handoff from Taylor Barnhill, it never was a handoff. Kept it himself and picked up 3.
The biggest enemy of a young quarterback is indecision. That's precisely what we just saw on the mesh point of that handoff. He's trying to decide, and you're reading it just like you would read it in a pocket as a quarterback, what the coverage is. He is reading this handoff. He kept it in there with the mesh point, but a bit too long. The main word I've heard, though, talking in the pregame down here in describing Taylor Barnhill is toughness. So he will certainly have no fear at all running into the teeth of that TCU defense.
And, Paul, I mentioned that earlier. When you have a guy like Taylor who isn't a full-time quarterback, that's one of the things that suffers is the ball handling. He doesn't get a lot of times to rep it.
Gets that one off to Tim Cornette over the left side. Down to the 42-yard line, gain of 3. And Tim Cornette, he's been hot recently in the last 2 games against Air Force and San Diego State. 34 carries, 210 yards. A couple of long touchdowns in the San Diego State game, and 5.9 per carry. That's better than 2 yards improvement over his number last year.
And for a big running back, he's 205 pounds. He does have good top-end speed. You saw that last week as we watched the tape versus San Diego State.
3rd down and 4. Horned Frogs bring 4. And Barnhill misses. Knows he missed him. Overshooting an open Michael Johnson.
Again, we talked about Michael Johnson. And one of the things that's very difficult when you don't get to rep a lot during the season at quarterback is being efficient throwing the football. And I think he's going to miss some passes today, but from what I've seen out of Taylor Barnhill, he's athletic, could potentially make some big plays. Just can he stay within the confines of this system and find a way to get points for this UNLV offense?
Second possession, much better than the first for UNLV as the Rebels move into TCU territory, but again it ends with a punt from Chase Lanford. Ed Wesley doesn't get a chance to put his hands on it as it rolls down to the 14-yard line. Casey Paul Hall, the Horned Frog offense, coming back for their second possession on the other side of this break. College Football on Versus is presented by K Jewelers, the #1 jewelry store in America. Every kiss begins with K. And by the new Capital One Cash Card for the people who want 50% more cash. And by Lowe's for all your home improvement needs. Lowe's, never stop improving. Rose Bowl trophy there inside the trophy room at TCU. Won that earlier this calendar year with the huge victory in Pasadena over Wisconsin, putting the exclamation point on a perfect, unbeaten TCU season. 1st down and 10. Casey Paul Hall handing off to Wayman James, trying to turn it out, get to the outside. Princeton Jackson, All-American junior college transfer, starting his first game. No gain.
UNLV prides themselves on making teams one-dimensional. They want to make the offense throw the football. They're going to get those corners up. Will Chandler, Sidney Hodge, they're going to play press man-to-man. I think for TCU to run the football, they're going to have to be successful throwing the football first and win some of those one-on-one matchups.
Coming right back to the run out of the shotgun formation, Wayman James shedding UNLV tacklers. Look at that strength and burst out near the 1st down sticks.
And, Paul, I take that back. It doesn't matter if the defense has 9 in the box. If the running back is going to run through the first 5 defenders that get there, all 3 of these TCU running backs, great at the point of attack. If you look at the low center of gravity, he initiates the contact, is able to fight through arm tackles. You really have to wrap up to get these TCU backs on the ground.
No surprise. The UNLV coaching staff, they've been talking to that defensive front about hitting blocks here. I've really got a sense here on their sidelines that they're worried about trying to control that run game. And as you mentioned, Sean, make TCU one-dimensional, especially in these sloppy conditions.
8 yards per carry, 3rd best in the nation. Casey Paul Hall trying to hit Wayman James through the air. That was high, it is behind, and it's also incomplete.
Paul, you really can't appreciate it. I know you guys are up in the ivory tower up there, but down here at field level, where it's a bit sloppy, the ball's wet, and the weather conditions are changing almost series by series as the rain picks up and drops down. And so we see TCU trying to come out and throw the football early in the ballgame and establish that passing game. But as we just saw in the last play, even if the play is on time, it's difficult right now to catch this wet, heavy football.
Josh Boyce already with the drop, and Wayman James had both hands on that football and couldn't come down with it. James out, Matthew Tucker now in the I formation. Right up the middle, cutting back. Nate Carter there for the tackle for UNLV. Horned Frogs pick up 4. It's been a TCU offense. We have complimented Casey Paul Hall for how well he has played in his first season as a starter as a sophomore, but it's been led by the running game here, Sean. 63% on the run. You look at the balance for the Horned Frog offense, the only team besides Air Force in this conference averaging more than 200 rushing yards per game. 3rd down and 6. Rebels bring only 3. Paul Hall with time. To Antoine Hicks, throwing that one into coverage, and lucky Sean, that one fell incomplete instead of into the arms of a Rebel defender.
Very difficult throw against that too deep coverage when that corner's playing soft. Really have to take some of the air off of it. Actually a bad decision, by Casey Paul Hall. When you see that cornerback getting depth, you have to go to that underneath wide receiver, hope he makes the cornerback miss and picks up the 1st down on his own.
Anson Kelton goes up to get it and doesn't get off a strong punt. Sails out of bounds. And UNLV on his last possession ended up inside TCU territory. And not far from it right now on the 47-yard line. That's only a punt of 23. UNLV, when you look at the athletic program, known mostly for its hoop success, especially in the 80s and 90s. But, hey, they play pretty good football there, too. Randall Cunningham went on to an excellent career from UNLV. Also a very good punter, a 2-time All-American punter in his time in Las Vegas. Ickey Woods before helping Cincinnati to the Rose Bowl. Going for over 1,600 yards. And John Robinson on his way to the College Football Hall of Fame found success as the head coach of the Rebels. Taylor Barnhill scrambling and finding Austin Harrington. Flushed out of the pocket to the right, throwing across his body again with a wet football in the rain.
And you see Austin Harrington right here is on the inside of this 3 wide receiver set. And this is just him understanding his scramble drills. His quarterback starts scrambling around the pocket, does a good job of coming back to the football. Taylor Barnhill has not gotten a lot of reps at quarterback. So some of these pass plays may become unconventional if that initial option is not there. I don't think he's comfortable getting to his 2nd and 3rd options, but he's going to run around. He's going to compete. He's going to try and make some plays.
Bobby Hauck in his 2nd season as the head coach of the UNLV Rebels. Comes from tremendous success at the college level. Came here from Montana. More on all he did there coming up momentarily. And right now his offense on the move. 1st down and 10 on the TCU 24. The faked Cornets and looking for Philip Payne. Overshoots him, and it'll be 2nd down 10. So Bobby Hauck in that incredible run of success that he had at Montana. 80-17 from 03 to 09. His first taste of big-time college football, or Division I college football, came at UCLA 1990 to 1992. Terry Donahue, the head coach then. Talked to Coach Donahue yesterday about Coach Hauck. He said, what I remember the most about him? He was able to be emotional and demonstrative, yet remain cool and in control. And that's a quality of a coach you don't often see. Tim Cornette working it right up the middle. Gain of 2. Coach Donahue also recognizing the fact that Bobby Hauck organized, bright, and made a contribution even as a graduate assistant to the special teams of the Bruins. And you look at Bobby Hauck now, and he's not only the head coach, but also the special teams coach. So he has maintained that as he has moved up the coaching ladder. This is 3rd down and 8. Trips wide receivers, 3 wideouts to the left for Taylor Barnhill. Horned Frogs come with 4. With time, and Michael Johnson open. Just missed him, Sean, and you don't get many opportunities like that with a veteran receiver running free in the end zone.
And I mentioned I like Michael Johnson. He's a guy jumps out on tape as being a guy that finds a way to get open. He's going to run a corner route to the back of that end zone. Taylor just a little late throwing the football. If he throws it a little earlier, he can keep it in bounds. But again, you're going to get some of that with the H-back playing quarterback. Their top 2 quarterbacks, Sean Riley, Caleb Herring, both unable to play today because of injury.
So Nolan Cohorst on to attempt a field goal for UNLV from 39 yards out this season. He is 6 for 11, though he has not attempted or made a field goal in the previous 5 games. He got just enough of that one. I don't know if it would have been good from 40, Sean, but from 39, we'll give him 3, and a smile from his head coach, Bobby Hauck. UNLV leads by 3. January 2nd, we will officially become part of the NBC Sports family. Versus will become the NBC Sports Network, a new 24-hour sports network. The NBC Sports Network is coming January 2nd. That is less than a month away. Paul Burmeister, Sean King, Anthony Herron. Here in Fort Worth, Texas, Bobby Houck's Rebels on top 3-0. 39-yard field goal. And TCU 6-0 in the Mountain West Conference and 6 consecutive wins, off to a bit of a slow start here. At home this afternoon, 5:35 left in the first quarter. Chase Lansford to kick off. TCU offense already with 2 tries, equaling 0 points and a squib kick. Scooped up just inside the 30-yard line. Luke Shivers, fullback / tight end. The move H-Bach with a return of 14 yards. So Casey Paul Hall had huge shoes to fill, stepping in for Andy Dalton, 2-time Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. Team not winning quite as much, but Sean, his numbers awfully impressive for a sophomore in his very first season as a starter. When you line him up to what Andy Dalton did as a freshman, you'd have to say individually he's been better. You know, Paul, association breeds assimilation. You start to acquire the characteristics and attributes of those things that you hang around. Being under the tutelage of Andy Dalton has helped Casey Paul Hall immensely. Fires it out to Antoine Hicks, fighting to get out to that midfield stripe. He does get there. Gain of 5. And I look at those numbers, Sean. My eyes go right to 68% in his first season as a starter. I also see a touchdown to interception ratio of 4-1. So knowing what you know about playing that position, what impresses you more, the high 60s in his first year or the TD to INT of 4-1? I think it's the lack of turnovers. I think with young quarterbacks, especially replacing a guy like Andy Dalton that's been that successful, there's pressure to be successful and be successful early. The ability to get to the second and third option when the initial option is not there is what keeps those interceptions to a minimum. 2nd and 5, the fake to Wayman James. Plenty of time on the play action to the freshman. Brandon Carter overshoots him, and it'll be 3rd down and 5. Brandon Carter actually misjudges this football. I think he thinks it's going to be shorter than it actually is. At the top of his route, he's going to run a post route here, but if you see, he's going to stop as if the ball is short instead of running through the football. He made the huge catch against Boise State in the end zone, setting up the winning 2-point conversion. On a play like that, just had a chance on it, went up and got it. This is 3rd down and 5. The play action, the swing out to Antoine Hicks. 2nd time on this drive we've seen that play. That time it works for 1st down and a TCU gain of 8. You know, very solid senior wide receiver. You know, one of the things that goes unnoticed is the block. Josh Boyce, you see the sophomore wide receiver at the point of attack, does a good job of engaging Will Chandler at the corner, which allows Antoine Hicks to pick up the 1st down. You know, as a group, this wide receiver unit is very talented, very explosive, but they also have bought into blocking for the other guy when he has the football. Horned Frogs now operating inside Rebel territory, and Ed Wesley fighting his way for a gain of 4. Leading wide receiver for Casey Paul Hall is Josh Boyce. Also leads the Mountain West Conference. Josh Boyce, today's K Jewelers go-to guy.
You get the sense that the TCU staff is always looking for something, even with the guys that are making the most plays, for them to continue improving on. And when I asked Justin Fuentes, as we spoke to him this week, which one of your wide receivers is the best blocker, he went out of his way to say Antoine Hicks is the best, but he also went out of his way to say that Josh Boyce is the guy who can really pick it up in that area.
Inside give to Matthew Tucker. As Ed Wesley motioned out of the backfield, that's a gain of 4. Late flag. Referee today is Alan Eck.
After the play was over, personal foul, number 95, defense, 15-yard penalty, automatic 1st down.
Defensive lineman Tyler Gaston, sophomore out of North Las Vegas, with the personal foul.
I'm guessing it's not the last personal foul penalty we might see today. I've been in these slugfests where the field gets sloppy, and I'm telling you, it wears on you a bit. You get a little bit frustrated, especially just with the fact that you don't have great footing here, and you're used to bear wrestling with these big offensive linemen down in and down out anyway. But once you start getting sloppy and things start getting testy, I'm guessing we're going to see a few more of those today.
95 is Alex Corman, and it's 1st and 10 from the 20. Matt Brown in at quarterback, working the option to Ed Wesley, spinning and still going.
And you talk about how much success Casey Paul Hall has had throwing the football. One of the aspects of his game that they really want him to prove is being able to ball handle all of the different things they ask of their quarterback. Matt Brown is in the game because he's a better ball handler. You see he fakes the zone read, pitches the football to Ed Wesley. That's something that they want Casey Paul Hall to really improve upon this offseason.
Matt Brown certainly the rushing quarterback for TCU. 5 rushing touchdowns, second only to Matthew Tucker on the team. This is Wayman James darting up the middle inside the 10-yard line down to the 7. Gain of 4.
UNLV attempting to stem their defensive front late, and when you do that, you almost have to guess the proper gap. They're waiting on the call from the linebacker, Nate Carter, to tell them when it's time to move. Once you see them make that movement there, then it's up to the running back from TCU. The chess match ensues even during the snap to be able to pick and dodge in the proper hole.
TCU scored 48 out of 56 times in the red zone this season, including 39 touchdowns. It's first and goal from the 6. Penalty marker down on the 10-yard line. Wayman James finds the going tough. Rebel defense stout in the middle.
Illegal shift offense. 2 men were in motion, did not get set before the snap. 5-yard penalty. Replay, first down.
Gary Patterson telling us the performance unacceptable a couple weeks ago, which was the last game against Colorado State, offensively and defensively. Not that he needs extra motivation in a bye week, but I would imagine those were pretty interesting, intense practices surrounding Thanksgiving.
And they want this defense to be tough. They want them to defend the run. And this is a battle of 2 wills so far. TCU's committed to running in between the tackles directly at this UNLV defense. But if you look at these defensive alignments, those safeties are only about 7 yards from the line of scrimmage. They have 9 guys in the box. They're daring TCU to throw these one-on-one matchups on the outside.
Second down goal from the 8. Casey Paul Hall keeping it himself inside the 5 and inside the end zone.
Great play design by Gary Patterson. That quarterback draw is something that really works, especially when it's a big quarterback. Surprisingly, only the 2nd rushing touchdown for Casey Paul Hall on the season. So caught that UNLV defense by surprise. Not something that TCU does a lot based upon what you see on film.
8-yard touchdown run, Casey Paul Hall. And Ross Evans up and in. So the TCU offense responds to the UNLV field goal. We've heard all season they want Casey Paul Hall to be a better runner. This run ends up in the end zone, and the Horned Frogs lead 7-3.
Lee McHugh in New York with a game break. Houston's path to perfection being derailed by Southern Miss in the Conference USA title game. It's Austin Davis out to Tracy Lampley. He goes 61 yards. Great effort here to get into the end zone. Southern Miss leads this 42-21. Back to Fort Worth.
Casey Paul Hall moments after an 8-yard touchdown run, and the Horned Frogs lead 7-3. And it would get awfully interesting here, Sean, if Houston does lose today. BCS becomes a possibility, just a possibility for the Horned Frogs for a 3rd consecutive season. Deontay Purvis with a nice return of 33 yards. So here's what would have to happen for TCU to go to a BCS Bowl for the 3rd consecutive year. A win today makes them the outright Mountain West Conference champions. So that's number 1. You have to be a conference champion to get a bid as an at-large team. Number 2, they have to be in the top 16. Right now they are ranked number 18. So they would need teams in front of them to lose. They need to win impressively here this afternoon and get into that top 16. And then Gary Patterson's Horned Frogs eligible to go to a BCS Bowl for the 3rd consecutive year. First down and 10. Taylor Barnhill, inside give to the freshman Deontay Bradford for a gain of 4. Let's take a look at the BCS standings presented by Lowe's, dominated by the SEC right now with LSU and Alabama sitting pretty at 1 and 2. And there is TCU at 18. Again, need to get into that 16 or top 16 with a win today to be conference champions to have a shot at the BCS. Back to the air. Michael Johnson. Shoestring tackle made by the linebacker St. Carter. McCoy also in, and that's a gain of 4.
And Paul, you talk about how difficult it is to go undefeated. College football's the only major sport that requires you to go undefeated generally to play for the national title. I mean, that Houston Cougar team has been so good the entire season. Southern Miss is pretty good, coupled in the fact that Kevin Sumlin's the hot coach right now, been mentioned for a lot of jobs, probably a little distracted today in that football game.
Deonze Bradford, the freshman, stuffed. Gain of 1, Stansley Mapunga there. And it'll be 4th and short. Clock ticking down now inside 20 seconds remaining in the first quarter.
You know, TCU has a size advantage versus this UNLV offensive line. You see the swim move by Stansley Mapunga, a guy that Anthony Herron just loves, you know, based on his ability. They're going to have to be unconventional in running the football. Not going to be able to line up and just run through that A and B gap and be successful against this TCU defense.
A lot to like about Mapunga. 0 tackles for loss in the first 2 games. 9.5 since. 1 quarter in the books. A field goal for UNLV. A touchdown run by Casey Paul for the Horned Frogs. And TCU leads after 1, 7-3. Ready to start the second quarter here in Fort Worth. The Horned Frogs leading 7-3 over UNLV. Interesting decision here by Bobby Hauck. His team moving the football. 4th down and 1. Electing to punt. Chase Lanford punting to Ed Wesley. Wesley from his own 25. Catches it with a head of steam. Turns up, still fighting out to the 37-yard line.
And that was an interesting decision, Paul. And, you know, Bobby Hauck, the head coach, actually coaches the special teams. You know, he said you have to be careful, you know, when you take these head coaching jobs. If you don't coach something, you turn into an administrator. So he said that he had all of their fakes and all their tricks were on the table today. Very surprising that they didn't fake the punt or at least go for it on 4th and 1, because I just don't think they can consistently stop this TCU offense today. They're going to have to take some chances.
32-yard punt, 13-yard return. It'll be 1st down and 10 from the 37. Wayman James, the tailback. Casey Ballhall's left. Play action, rolling left. Looking for the senior Antoine Hicks, incomplete. History at TCU football. They started playing back in the 1800s. 1896 to be exact. Didn't take long to get to be a very strong team. National champions, 35. And in 38, Davey O'Brien, you know that name if you like quarterbacks in college football. Won the Heisman Trophy here, and recently been nothing short of outstanding since 05. A winning percentage of 85% and 5-1 in bowls. An impressive win over Wisconsin last year in the Rose Bowl. Wayman James, option to the left. And the UNL defense there, gain of 5. Last 5 years for Gary Patterson. A win today, Sean, gives them 10 wins. The 4th consecutive year that would be with at least 10 wins. You know a program has it going where if they win 9-3, it'd be an off year.
And I think this season, to me, is the most impressive. You lose Andy Dalton, Jeremy Curley, significant parts of that #1 ranked defense last year. To be able to come back this year and potentially get 10 wins says a lot about where TCU's at as a program.
3rd and 5, a little behind Sky Dawson. Nice catch, turns it upfield, and gets close to a 1st down. Going to be a yard short after a gain of 4. So moments ago, Bobby Hauck elected to punt it away on 4th and 1 from about the same spot on their side of the field. They give him just enough for a 1st down. Not a gain of 4, gain of 5. It's 1st and 10. Don't worry about that decision.
And as successful as TCU has been this year, Paul, Gary still feels like there's a lot of growth there. You know, they're very young in some positions. Still wants Casey to become more consistent, become more of a leader. Thinks his young receivers can be more consistent catching the football. Really thinks that this team can continue to get better.
Ed Wesley on 1st and 10. Nice tackle made by Quentin Porter, a gain of 4. You talk about Casey Paul Hall needing to improve, and this is the 4th time that we have seen the Horned Frogs this season, and it struck me this, really all season, Sean, but this week as well, they want Casey to be consistent with his preparation during the week. Don't just prepare hard and grind it for the really good teams. Do it every single week.
You know, that position is about consistency. So much more goes into it than just throwing the football. So many different aspects to really becoming the leader of a football team. And Casey's still growing in a lot of those areas. Casey Paul.
And Wesley met right at the line of scrimmage. UNLV defense stepping up. John Lotulele, gain of only 2. The rushing defense coming into this game ranked 100th in the nation, and scoring defense was 117 out of 120. With 12:40 and counting left in the second quarter, Rebels playing for keeps as TCU only with 7 points at this point. 3rd down and 4. Matthew Tucker, the tailback, to Casey Paul Hall's right. Rebels bring 4, man coverage, and firing and missing Josh Boyce. And it'll be 4th and 4.
We've discussed how difficult it can be to get your footing and keep your footing as a defender in scenarios like this. For the DBs, they tend to like to go some press man coverage on the outside. You watch them turn and run right there. The pass not quite on the money, but that's what you're going to see on the outside from UNLV. They want to get their hands on the outside receivers from TCU, impede their route running ability, and throw off the timing.
Anson Kelton punting to Michael Johnson. Rolls into the end zone, and UNLV will face 1st down and 10 from the 20-yard line. 12:13 left in the second quarter. The Horned Frogs lead 7-3. Welcome back to Fort Worth. Mountain West Conference football on versus TCU leading UNLV 7-3. The Rebels now 1st and 10 from their own 20-yard line. Right up the middle, the freshman Deonze Bradford for a gain of 1. Kenny Kane, junior linebacker, there for the tackle. Brett Boyko, number 69, isn't your garden variety left tackle. First of all, he's from north of the border, Saskatoon. See him as a kid, picture with his hand on the ground. So he's on the way to be an offensive tackle, right? Well, it took a little turn from that. Yes, wearing number 23, but he played quarterback in high school, St. Joseph's High School in Saskatoon. Was on his way to play offensive line at Eastern Washington. This is Bradford once again to Karen Cuba there for the TCU defense. Was on his way to play college football at Eastern Washington. Found out late in the process there actually was not a spot for him. Was going to play at Montana State. The Eastern Washington coaches didn't want to play against him, so they called the UNLV staff and said, take a look at this kid. They brought him in for a visit. Not only the starter at left tackle as a freshman, but one of 4 freshmen in the Mountain West Conference nominated for Freshman of the Year honors.
You talk about interconference competition. What a job by Eastern Washington. If we can't get him, at least we're going to prevent our main competitors from having an opportunity to have him part of their ball club.
Brett Boyko likely a chance to pass block here against Ross Forrest on 3rd down and 7 from his own 23. Frogs bring only 3. Barnhill kept it himself. Did get across the line of scrimmage, but didn't get enough there. Ross Forrest there for the tackle, gain of 5. Ross Forrest back in 2008 became the first true freshman walk-on to play for Gary Patterson.
And you like the toughness by Taylor Barnhill. You've heard of how good of an athlete that he is. Probably going to play H-back next year. But with Caleb Herring, their normal starter, out, and Sean Riley injured himself, if Taylor gets hurt, I don't know who's going to play quarterback for UNLV. So Bobby Hawk may tell Taylor, be a little careful running that football. If it's not there, get down.
Chase Lanford, the punt, gets it off. Ed Wesley turns and runs from his own 26-yard line. He's got a wall around the left side. Down he goes at the 40-yard line. 44-yard punt by Lansford. 13-yard return for Ed Wesley. Little under 10 minutes left till halftime. The Horned Frogs by 4.
LaDainian Tomlinson, TCU.
It's a split. 15-10 to the 5. Touchdown, LaDainian Tomlinson scores.
Former Horned Frog LaDainian Tomlinson now in the back nine of his career, still getting it done for the New York Jets. TCU getting it done, but just barely here. 7-3 over UNLV. 9:56 left in the second quarter. Matthew Tucker, the tailback, along with Wayman James, and this is Wayman James. UNLV run defense continues to be strong here. TCU only averaging 3.3 yards per play today. Season average 6.7. Rebels up to the challenge through a quarter and a half.
You know, and Paul, I think you see a little stubbornness in this play calling for TCU offensively. UNLV has a lot of guys in that box. Those safeties are getting very active in that run game, and they're press covering these wide receivers. I think they're going to have to open it up a little bit to create some room inside for those running backs to run.
Casey Paul Hall so far only 4 out of 10 for 24 yards. Looking deep for Josh Boyce. Excellent catch. Josh Boyce high-pointing the football. Goes up, comes down, and that's a gain of 29.
And, Paul, that's exactly what I mean. They have dynamic players at the edges offensively at TCU. Josh Boyce is one-on-one right here. This is actually good coverage, but your players have to go up and make plays when a team decides that they're going to press man your wide receivers. Play that bump and run coverage. You have to have confidence as a quarterback that if I put it in the vicinity, my guy will come down with the football. Great job by Josh Boyce of having good body control, high point in the football, making a big catch for TCU.
You see the impressive numbers there for Boyce. Leads the Mountain West Conference receptions per game, receiving yards per game, and also total yards, working his way to 1,000. Back to the air. Working it underneath to the freshman, David Porter. Horned Frogs gain 6.
And you see another pass call. One of the things you have to do if the defense is going to keep 9 guys in the box, you've got to be able to throw the football. TCU has done that well this year. If they can make some plays in the passing game, it'll force UNLV, force those safeties to back up a little bit. They'll have more success running the football as the game progresses.
What we're seeing so far in this first half, an example of how vast the difference is when Casey Paul Hall is locked in. Remember a couple of weeks ago when we saw that Colorado State game, the ball was sailing on him throughout that entire first half, and here today, in tough conditions, he's throwing it well.
There's another solid throw. Casey Paul Hall, second time in a row, going to a true freshman. That's Brandon Carter. TCU first down and a gain of 10.
And you have to make some adjustments when you're getting a lot of man-to-man. You see the stacked wide receivers for TCU. That makes it very difficult for that corner to get up and press the wide receiver on the line of scrimmage.
Paul Hall keeping it himself. That's only a gain of 1. Casey Paul Hall already with a rushing touchdown today. And that is just a gain of 1.
And, Paul, you'll see a lot of that offensively when a team likes to pressure wide receivers. You'll stack the wide receivers. You'll get in that bunch formation. You'll try and deter the defense from doing what they like to do by formation and alignment.
Tackle made by Tani Baca. This is second down 9. TCU. So far, the second quarter this season, outscoring opponents 127 to 43. Looking to make it 133. Is Wayman James. Fighting to get into the end zone, and he does. Wayman James from 10 yards out.
Paul, I alluded to it in the open, and it applies to all 3 of these TCU running backs. They do a good job at the initial point of attack of not being tackled by arm tackling defenders. You have to really drive through those guys to get them on the ground. Good job by Wayman James.
Ross Evans sneaks it just inside the right upright. Doubly good carry for Wayman James. They're averaging 8 yards per carry, picks up 10, so the average won't be hurt. Also gets his 5th touchdown of the season. The Horned Frogs lead 14-3. Tonight at midnight, Versus will dive deep into the National Football League. Go inside the locker room and also on the field to see and hear which turning points alter the week's most important games. NFL Turning Point with Dan Patrick tonight at midnight only on Versus. Wayman James, touchdown run. TCU 14-3 lead. 7:07 left in the second quarter. 6 plays, 59 yards, 2 minutes, 49 seconds off the clock. I think Casey Paul Hall heard me say he was only 4 of 10. 3 consecutive completions leading to that touchdown run. This is Deontay Purvis, and that's the TCU special teams. 16-yard return tackle made by Antonio Graves, redshirt freshman wide receiver. Tank Carter, the most decorated senior, 19 seniors being honored on Senior Day. Leads the team in tackles, was the Rose Bowl defensive MVP a year ago. He's been banged up this year, doesn't have huge numbers, so anytime you come in with the All-American label, if you're not outstanding, people think you're taking a little step back.
You know, that follow-up season after accomplishing the things that he did last year is one of the most difficult. You mentioned that he's been banged up, but he's fought through a lot of injuries. They lost their other outstanding linebacker, Tanner Brock, early in the season to injury. Tank's really been that emotional leader. He gets the defense set. He's really been the glue defensively that's helped this young defense develop in a lot of areas.
This is a thrill seeker. He doesn't just like to hit running backs and quarterbacks. I mean, he has in his entire life enjoyed cutting against the grain a little bit. At age 7, BMX champion, world champion there, Sean. Okay, now is a little bit more of a grown-up. A little bit of surfing with his dog. I'm more impressed with the dog there, Sean, to be honest.
I'm impressed by the fact that he didn't fall. The first time I went
Tank or the dog?
Skiing, snowboarding, water, whatever that thing is called.
Wakeboarding.
It took me about 2 hours to actually stay on the thing. The fact that he's doing it with the dog looks absolutely terrified, by the way.
Tank thinks it's pretty cool, but go ahead, Anthony.
There was a point earlier in Tank's life where he almost didn't become a football player because he was into so many extreme sports like BMX and had so much success doing them. I'll give you a few more details about it after this snap.
Also the reigning Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Week for his performance against Colorado State in his last outing. This is 3rd down and 12, and that's Barnhill coming underneath. Incomplete to Devontae Davis. Jason Verrett there to break it up.
We watched that video of Tank Carter at 7 years old, actually competing against 9-year-olds when he was a BMX international champion. He actually enjoyed that more than football when he was younger, but then he gave it up a bit because it got to be too much of a grind for Tank Carter to continue. Once he got to high school and got back into BMX.
Chase Lanford has that one blocked. Derek Gilden, freshman linebacker, breaking through. Chase Lanford down as Gilden came in hard and got all of that one.
And he goes right up the seam right there, actually unblocked. Does a good job of taking the football right off the foot of the punter.
Derek Gilden, freshman linebacker.
UNLV punt protection has struggled a couple of other times this season. They've had 2 other punts blocked earlier in the year, and they've both come from right up the middle, as we saw right there.
Punt only of 7 yards, and the TCU offense in excellent position now. 1st and 10 on the 32. Breaking free. And scoring. Matthew Tucker with another TCU touchdown.
Paul, we saw Wayman James do it. We saw Ed Wesley do it. It's Matthew Tucker's chance. Yards after contact with these TCU backs. They are so aggressive and so violent running the football. All have good low center of gravity. All initiate the contact. Very difficult to arm tackle. If you don't wrap up, they will run through all kinds of tackles. Right now, Bobby Hauck has to be very disappointed in his defense's inability to get this TCU running backs on the ground.
You had to love what happened there at the point of attack. The big guys in the middle moving the line of scrimmage.
Matthew Tucker, 32-yard touchdown run, a 1-play touchdown drive set up by the special teams. Derek Gilden with the block punts, and the Horned Frogs with a 21-3 lead. Matthew Tucker, 32-yard touchdown run, 1-play drive set up by Derek Gilden's block punts, and TCU off and running, leading by 18. Chase Lanford, UNLV punter, banged up on the block punts. Ryan Danucci kicking off for the Horned Frogs. Deontay Purvis bringing it back. Out to the 33-yard line.
I call Matthew Tucker the bulldozer of these three because he has an ability to run through tackles. I want you to watch how many UNLV defenders have an opportunity to tackle Matthew Tucker. That's one. That's two. That's three coming into the picture. None of them can get him on the ground. Actually, good hustle by Quentin Pointer. He's going to come back and miss the tackle, be the fourth UNLV defender, 5 and 6. 6 out of 11 guys on defense had a chance to tackle Matthew Tucker, and none could get him on the ground.
Devin Johnson making the tackle there. Loss of 3 on Tim Cornette. Matthew Tucker now with 11 touchdowns this season. That is a team high, and for his Horned Frog career, 26 career touchdowns, the best among active Frogs.
And I wasn't exaggerating earlier, Paul. I think as a group, this TCU running back group is as good as anyone in the country.
Really the only position of experience coming into the season with question marks at quarterback, offensive line, and wide receiver. All 3 of those guys, Tucker, Wesley, and James, played a year ago. UNLV to the air. They wanted to go to the air. Taylor Barnhill wrestled to the ground by St. Carter. Gain of 3.
Southern Miss pulling the upset today versus an undefeated Houston team in the Conference USA Championship game. 42-21 late in the 4th quarter.
The injured Rebel down is starting offensive lineman Doug Zisman, junior out of Phoenix. And if Houston does lose today, Sean, it brings the BCS back into possibility as in a 3rd consecutive BCS Bowl for the TCU Horned Frogs. Bobby Houck looking on with his Rebels trailing 21-3. TCU coming into this game under Gary Patterson ranked number 18, Sean, needing to be in the top 16 to be eligible for an at-large BCS bid, and also needing to be conference champions. Don't know if they're going to move into the top 16 if indeed they do hang on and win here, leading 21-3. But a win today and they would be outright conference champions. So Houston losing makes it a little more interesting around here.
Well, it keeps the door just open a little bit, you know, for them to have an opportunity to get into a BCS game. And it all goes back to their ability to go and do what no one had done in about 4 or 5 years, and that's beat Boise in Boise. Big win for them has put them in a spot today where they could potentially get the chance. I know they're excited about that.
And keep in mind, this TCU team started 3-2. So 1 step away from a conference title seemed like a long way ago. A long way away after losing to SMU. Loss of 1. Sack provided by John Lewis, freshman defensive tackle.
And almost a monumental task that Taylor Barnhill has been given today to come in and try and play his quarterback position against one of the better defensive minds in college football in Gary Patterson. I mean, it's been an uphill battle. They're going to have to find a way to get him some completions, get some things going offensively for this UNLV team.
Chase Lanford had his last punt blocked by Derek Gilden. And gets that one away. Ed Wesley from his own 12. Ball's out. UNLV had an excellent shot at the bottom of that pile to come up with it. Ed Wesley was running free. The ball came loose, and the Rebels have it.
And Mike Clausen came to UNLV as a quarterback. He's now the starting safety, and he's a guy who plays just like Johnny Fobbs and Takirin Cuba from TCU, a guy that really is aggressive when making tackles. And as good as this running back group has been, their Achilles heel ever since they went to Wyoming and played the Cowboys has been fumbling the football. Have really not done a good job over the last 4 or 5 weeks of protecting the football. Gary Patterson, I know that adds to his frustration level because it's something they've really worked on in practice.
A.J. Martin recovering the Ed Wesley fumble, and UNLV first down and 10 from the TCU 31. Taylor Barnhill in serious trouble in the backfield. Kenny Kane giving chase, and Barnhill wisely just flings it out of bounds. And that is not intentional grounding. New rules here this year, Sean. Very liberal. A quarterback can just get rid of it to get out of trouble.
Jason Barrett going to come on a corner cat. Doesn't get an opportunity to make the sack too often. Doesn't do a good job going right through the quarterback. Gets caught on the edge. And a big kid like Taylor Barnhill is going to get out of it. But Tim Cornette coming back and helping his quarterback. Actually, a little crackback block there on Jason Barrett.
With the amount of slide protection, sorry, Paul, with the amount of slide protection UNLV does, it's important for guys like Anthony Vidal, their tight end 88, to pick up the block he missed on Barrett.
Tim Cornette, good piece of tough running there. Jonathan Anderson there for the tackle. It's a gain of 5.
They tend to have a running back or a tight end there at the edge of the protection, and they like to slide their big guys up front. When that happens, you're going to have a tight end or a running back on the edge blocking a defensive end or an outside blitzer.
UNLV now facing 3rd down and 5. The Rebels have not converted any turnovers into points in the last 4 games. 3rd downs right now. UNLV 0 for 7 this afternoon. Barnhill almost sacks and once again just flings it into the end zone. Johnny Fobbs was there. Greg McCoy was there. Incomplete pass. Intended for Michael Johnson.
And Barnhill is kind of running for his life, but he's doing a good job of extending plays. You know, look at the athleticism by Stanley Mapunga as he jumps over Tim Cornette. You just watch him. You know, Anthony, loves Stanley Mapunga. Guy really slowed down a little bit the last couple of weeks, but you see the athleticism and the ability that the sophomore defensive end possesses.
Nolan Cohorst from 43 yards out, 1 for 1, good from 39 yards away. And Cohorst having a strong afternoon. Good from 43, and it's 21-6 with 2:13 left. Ed Wesley fumble leads to 3 more points. The second field goal of the afternoon for UNLV, and it's 21-6. At the end of the first half, get all the day's scores and highlights, plus a look ahead to the Sunday night football matchup between the Detroit Lions and the New Orleans Saints. All that coming up in the Geico halftime report with Liam, Doug, and Roland. 2 minutes, 13 seconds left to play in the first half. And the UNLV offense and special teams cashing in there. The Ed Wesley fumble on the punt. The Cohorst field goal, his second of the day.
You guys mentioned the athleticism there of a guy like Stanley Mapunga. Look at that play where he's jumping over the cut block of a running back. That's where his game is starting to take the next step a bit. He's not just a flash player who occasionally shows that speed off the edge, but he's starting to become a more intelligent football player. They've been cut blocking him almost every time he's come off the edge with that slide protection. You match it up on a running back diving at your legs. Every once in a while as a defensive end, you got to keep him honest.
It works for me. Yeah, keep him honest. Chase Lanford to kick. And this is Greg McCoy, leads the Mountain West Conference in kickoff return average. 29-yard average. This will be 29 and then some. There is a penalty marker on the 19-yard line, but Greg McCoy takes it to the house. Would be Greg McCoy's second kickoff return for a touchdown this season. That one from 99 yards. We'll see what Alan Eck has to say about the penalty marker.
During the return, personal foul, low block, number 87 to the kicking team. The play resulted in a touchdown. The 15-yard penalty will be enforced on the ensuing kickoff.
It's how to celebrate Senior Day for senior Greg McCoy from Dallas. A 99-yard kickoff return for a touch.
And if you see it occurs right there, one of the new rules is when you're engaging that wedge, you cannot go down and cut block those defenders. Greg McCoy is an elite athlete. He's one of those guys who really has not produced to his ability, but anytime he touches the football, he's a threat to go the distance on that special teams. A dynamic player, had a phenomenal opener this year versus Baylor. Good to see the senior get a touchdown today here on Senior Day.
Ross Evans up and in, and it's 28-6. The Horned Frogs leading UNLV. Take a look at this kickoff return in real time, and keep in mind Greg McCoy's first kickoff return for a touchdown this year, 94 yards, so 99 his second and a season long.
He is what you call fast.
There's a mentality you have to have as a kick returner. Are you willing to go up in there and trust the blocks, especially from the guys in your wedge? Because initially, it didn't look open. I was right near the end zone, and I had a great shot from my vantage point of what Greg McCoy was seeing. And initially, it didn't look like it was open. And then just at the precise time, it burst open. And then he used the speed from there.
29.1 average per return coming into this game. Good for number 1 in the Mountain West Conference. 99 only going to help that. TCU now outscored opponents in the second quarter this season by a little over 100 points. 102 to be exact. 148-46. Active couple of series there for the special teams at TCU. It was down, then it was back up. Ed Wesley was the fumble, or with the fumble, that led to 3 UNLV points, and coming right back, Greg McCoy from 99 yards away. And it's 28-6.
Deontay Purvis has 2 kick return touchdowns in his own right. Game could change.
Ryan DiNucci kicking off once again. And that was a courageous decision to bring that one out by Deontay Purvis. Cut down after a gain of 14. Coming up today at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, the Mountain West closes out the season of Mountain West football when New Mexico battles Boise State. Watch live as the Lobos and the 7th-ranked Broncos face off in a conference showdown in Boise. New Mexico versus Boise State, only on the mountain where the West is won. Mountain West will be won outright by the TCU Horned Frogs. If they can hold on to this lead right now, 28-6, and that is going to be a pick 6. Chris Gardner, senior linebacker. The seniors getting in on the scoring act for TCU. Greg McCoy with the kickoff return, and Chris Gardner with the interception return.
And senior day just took on a whole new meaning. You mentioned it, Paul. These seniors have really stepped up. A game that TCU was kind of going through the motions. Greg McCoy runs the kickback. Chris Gardner, who got the start today over Kenny Kane because it was senior day. Way to put a staple and an emphatic exclamation point on a great season and great career for Chris Gardner.
Ross Evans kick up and in. Couple of senior defenders put points on the board for the Horned Frogs. Greg McCoy, then Chris Gardner. Gary Patterson with coaching points. The most well-known senior for these TCU Horned Frogs, the returning All-American and linebacker, Tank Carter. Gary Patterson going to miss him a lot when Tank Carter says goodbye and leaves for the National Football League. This is his final game as a Horned Frog at Amon G. Carter Stadium, with the Horned Frog with the rose for his parents. There's his son, Cash. The team leader in tackles. The most decorated player on this defense, had a pick 6 on his last game here, and earned the Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Week for that effort. So just like that, 99-yard return from Greg McCoy, interception return by Chris Gardner, and it's 35-6 TCU. Deontay Purvis bringing it back for UNLV. Out to the 37-yard line. DiNucci with the kick and also the tackle. Love to see the kicker. Not just happy to kick it off and jog to the sideline.
If you're Gary Patterson, the last thing you want is your kicker having to make a touchdown saving tackle. But if you put into that situation, I like the form. If you see him drive through Deontay Purvis, the UNLV defensive guys should, watch how the kicker does it from TCU.
See how excited all the Horned Frog teammates on the sideline. Anytime a punter or a kicker, especially a backup kicker, makes a tackle, all of a sudden has lots of friends. Lots of issues right now for UNLV. 9 possessions, 6 punts, a couple of field goals, and 1 interception return for a touchdown, and 1 sack by Stanley Mapunga. Loss of 2.
Blood in the fingertips of Stanley Mapunga. You know you've got a team behind the 8 ball at this point, and a young quarterback who's not going to be able to trust his eyes. And by the way, you're facing an offensive tackle that's 245-pound Stanley Mapunga is smelling blood.
And I'm not really sure what Yusuf Rogers was doing. Looked like he was swimming Mapunga right to his quarterback.
Just gave him a little shove right there into Taylor. 2nd down, 12. Barnhill looking to throw again, will end up in his own backfield again. That's a loss of 4.
Been talking to you guys about slide protection. A freshman running back, Deonze Bradford, he ends up having to block one of the most ferocious pass rushers in the Mountain West. It's a battle he simply can't win if Stanley Mapunga is really trying to get after the passer.
And that's 2 times in a row, Anthony, that he actually gets to the passer. Might be just a half a sack on that one, but certainly in on it after the sack on the previous play. UNLV 0 for 8 converting 3rd down so far. This is 3rd down and 15. To the ground to Karen Cuba, makes the first contact in the backfield, coming up from his safety position. Braylon Broughton there to finish him off after a gain of 4. Clock still running as we approach the 10-second mark in the first half. Bobby Houck's Rebels up to the challenge early, but all of a sudden, special teams, defensive touchdown for UNLV or for TCU. Gary Patterson's group leading 35-6. This is how Gary Patterson handles every game right after halftime. Thinks he doesn't get enough time to meet with the team in the locker room. So each game, when it goes to zeros in the second quarter, he addresses his team on the field before they split up inside the locker room.
And he's going to get more good news as he heads to that locker room, because Houston has been upset by Southern Miss. Southern Miss pulling a big victory today, 49-28.
Our Anthony Herron joined by TCU head coach Gary Patterson.
Gary, a couple of seniors there for you when the game seemed a bit tenuous. You had some of your senior players step up and make a couple of plays.
Yeah, you know, it's they saw the Houston score. You know, we don't have any control over any of that, but you know, we didn't start with a lot of emotion, but we picked up a lot since the beginning. So hopefully we can finish the game for them.
And that score has gone final, Gary. You've been talking about that BCS possibility for a couple of weeks now. Can you smell it?
Well, the good part about it is being in the profession for a long time. In the last vote, everybody's going to show their vote. So I decline not to vote this year. I'm going to be interested to see how everybody votes this year.
We'll certainly be looking forward to watching it too, Coach. Good luck in the second half.
Thank you.
BCS hopes alive and a halftime lead of 35-6. That's it from Fort Worth for the first half. Let's go to Liam McHugh in our New York studio for the Geico halftime report. UNLV Rebels have their work cut out for them in the second half here as we approach the third quarter. 35-6. Casey Paul Hall and his Horned Frogs leading. As we get set for the third quarter, Chase Lansford kicking off for UNLV. Greg McCoy is back deep and left. Last time we saw him returning in the second quarter, he took it back 99 yards for a score. That just before Chris Gardner, fellow senior, had a pick 6 to put TCU in control heading into halftime. We are now heading into the third quarter. This is Wayman James. The ball came out, and TCU right back on it. Let's take a look at our Foster's first half stats. And Sean, anytime you hold a team under 100 total yards and 0 for 9 on third down, you got to say the defense is doing its job.
Yeah, they really showed up. You know, difficult challenge today for UNLV with, you know, who's a guy that's going to be an H-back next year, and Taylor, you know, Barnhill playing quarterback, and TCU's done a good job of just taking away everything from this UNLV offense.
Leading by 29 and right to the air, Casey Paul Hall to Sky Dawson. Put it behind him, and that's a loss of 3. Let's check in with Anthony Herron.
Paul, I spoke to Bobby Hauck as his football team left the locker room, and it's really a common story for UNLV this season. Bobby Hauck said, we were 2 plays away from being 14-6, and then all of a sudden it turned on us. So he just told his team in the locker room to come out here in the second half, prepared to finish their season on a high note. And Taylor Brownhill at quarterback, he said, we may not throw the football as much in this half, but we're certainly going to stay with Taylor.
Second down 13. Casey Ballhall throwing for the second time in a row to start this half, and that's a strike to number 3, the true freshman Brandon Carter for a TCU gain of 12. Princeton Jackson with the tackle.
And the ball location on this is elite. You know, this outside slant throw, especially on a college field with those wide hash marks, is very difficult. But you see the ball's a yard in front of the numbers, gives Brandon Carter an opportunity to run after the catch.
Casey Ballhall now 9 out of 15. And it'll be 3rd down and 1. Josh Boyce in motion across the formation. To the ground game, Matthew Tucker picking his way across the 40-yard line, gain of 6, and that'll be a TCU first down. Tucker, the leading rusher in the first half for the Horned Frogs, and picking up the first down here early in the 3rd quarter.
Getting to see Matthew Tucker extend his toolbox a bit as a ball carrier. We normally see him as the short yardage guy, the touchdown maker, the battering ram. We've seen him go a little bit more long distance in the end zone, and now we're seeing a few of those jump cuts. He's got the kind of physical ability to make those types of moves.
First down and 10. Tucker motions out of the backfield. Tucker with the swing pass. Putting his head down, tackled just before he got to the 50-yard line for a gain of 9.
When you compare Tucker with Ed Wesley, Wayman James, he looks completely different than the other two. At 6'1", 220 pounds, he brings more of an imposing type of look to a defense when he comes in the football game, but he's very nimble for a guy that size, and as we just saw right there, he's got very soft hands out of the backfield.
Interestingly, none of the 3 are very active in the passing game. Wayman James came into the game leading that group with 10 catches on the season, so probably surprised UNLV a little bit throwing the football to one of those backs.
Throwing the football again, this time to a senior wide receiver, Antoine Hicks, for a loss of 1. Senior offensive lineman, right tackle to be specific, Robert Deck from right here. Nolan Catholic High School in Fort Worth. He was voted in high school his team's most versatile football player. I don't think his teammates in high school had any idea what he was in for. He's been a backup tight end here, lettering for 3 years, but not starting. In August, he was moved from tight end to left tackle. About a week later, moved to right tackle, starting at right tackle the entire season after spending his entire career as a backup tight end. Robert Deck, epitomizing what the senior class is all about for TCU on senior day. Ground game providing the first down for the Horned Frogs. Wayman James, toss pitch to the right, gain of 4.
And Paul, he must just be a phenomenal teammate, because I've been around football a long time and I've never heard of a most versatile player award. That's something they created just so he could get something. But that says, you know, what they think about you when they start developing awards for you.
And as we look at the offensive line, it was a major question mark coming into this season, because at center, Jake Kirkpatrick last year, he won the Remington Award as the best center in the nation. Left tackle Marcus Cannon, drafted by the New England Patriots. They had to replace 4 starters, and this team goes from averaging 41 points a game to 40 points a game. Huge credit to the offensive line for the lack of drop-off, even though they had question marks coming into the season. That's Casey Ballhall looking for Luke Shivers, incomplete.
What you just mentioned there, Paul, one of the more impressive elements of this year's TCU football team, because offensive line and wide receiver were the 2 spots where they lost the most depth and talent, maybe aside from defensive back. But each one of those units on offense, the big guys up front and the wide receivers on the outside, coupling that with a young quarterback, they've actually been on pace, as we've addressed throughout the game today, to set some offensive records for this program.
Justin Fuente, offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator, giving them a huge compliment yesterday, saying this group has overachieved. It's exactly what you want from the big guys up front. Second down 10, empty backfield. Waited for Brandon Carter to come open on the slip screen, and he is slipping past that UNLV defensive backfield inside the 5-yard line. Ball haul to Carter, 44-yard gain.
And this is a little slip screen. You're going to see Brandon Carter comes down the line of scrimmage right here. And, I mean, he's excitement. He was a very highly touted high school player. You know, the shining star of last year's recruiting class, a kid that Gary Patterson was really excited about, and he's been everything they envisioned. Big catch in that Boise game that resulted in a touchdown, and right there you see the athleticism and the explosion.
2 touchdown catches, over 100 yards against Boise. Now inside the 5, Matthew Tucker. UNLV defense stepping up there, loss of 1. Leading the way, Alex Klorman. Brandon Carter was a high school quarterback. Chose TCU over Oklahoma.
And what shows you how explosive Brandon Carter is, actually ran out of his shoes on that play. He didn't fake a defender out of his shoes. He actually ran himself out of his shoes and was still able to burst into the open field.
You got to be pretty fast to leave a shoe behind.
That's right. Yeah, most people
and not miss a step.
2nd down 2. Luke Shivers, the fullback. Wayman James, the tailback. There's Wayman James. Second effort leads to 6.
Another one of those TCU running backs not going down on first contact. When you look at this UNLV defense today, and this has been the story, the inability to tackle in these one-on-one situations. And I know it's difficult because these backs are so talented. I mean, they're outstanding as a group. We saw Matthew Tucker with a great run earlier. Wayman James made an outstanding play, and there you see Ed Wesley.
And there we see Ross Evans kicking it up and through. And 42-6, the scoreboard now reads. Setting up the Wayman James touchdown. Casey Ballhall screen to Brandon Carter inside the 5. 10:21 left. The Horned Frogs lead 42-6. College football on Versus is presented by Foster's, Australian for beer. And by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com for a free rate quote. And by Lowe's. For all your home improvement needs, Lowe's never stop improving. The bull riding in Fort Worth there, Sean King. Lots to do. Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Wayman James just scored a touchdown, getting worked on the sidelines. He has 2 touchdowns.
You know, Paul, that looks like something our producer, Rob Highland, would like to do more so than myself.
I think he might have been there last night, shot that video himself. That's Deontay Purvis bringing it back for the Rebels. Again, Wayman James just scored a touchdown, his 2nd touchdown of the afternoon. A little work being done on the sidelines as he has 38 yards, and TCU leads 42-6. 10 plays, 74 yards, 4:39 off the clock. First drive of the 2nd half for TCU ends in the end zone. TCU defense only 92 yards allowed in that first half, 2.1 yards per play. Tim Cornette, the tailback. Going nowhere. TCU defense on its first play of the 2nd half throws him for a loss of 2. Chris Gardner, number 33, the senior from Arlington, already with a touchdown today. Now with another tackle.
And Bobby Hawk mentioned coming out of halftime they probably would not attempt to throw the football a lot with Taylor Barnhill in the 2nd half. But when you become one-dimensional against this TCU defense, I mean, they're going to put a lot of guys in the box. They're going to, you know, try and shoot those gaps, come downhill. You're not going to be able to run the football. He's just going to have to hope that Taylor Barnhill can make some throws, you know, to keep TCU honest defensively.
Injured UNLV Rebel on the field. Let you know who he is. Tim Cornette, the running back, number 35, is the injured Rebel on the field. Take another look at Cornette going off the right side. Leading rusher for this Rebel team, met by the senior linebacker Chris Gardner. Ross Forrest also in on that tackle with DJ Yendry. And Cornette remains on the field.
One of the multi-talented running backs that Bobby Hauck has brought into this program. Tim Cornette's put about 15 pounds of muscle on since last season when he led this football team in rushing as a freshman. We talked about the home run speed that he's displayed already at different points throughout the season. 80-yard touchdowns, 54-yard touchdown last week against San Diego State. Between he and DeAndre Bradford, they really feel like this tailback position is going to be solidified moving forward.
And Tim Cornette has some raw physical ability, Anthony. You know, I think they really need to work with him this offseason at lowering his pad level. He runs a little too vertical. You know, it's a little difficult to be shifty when you run that high, but he's a guy that has the foundation there to build upon.
Second down, 12. His partner, DeAndre Bradford, the tailback with him. This is the quarterback, Taylor Barnhill. Not exactly the way that play was drawn up, I'm sure.
Well, it defeats the purpose of the play action when the running back goes opposite of the way that you're faking. But again, Taylor Barnhill has not gotten a lot of snaps this year at quarterback. A guy that they envision as an H-back. He's kind of trying to fill in the day for, you know, Caleb Herring and Sean Riley, the quarterbacks that aren't available due to injury. So there are going to be some mistakes. But you got to applaud the young man. He has competed today in a very difficult situation.
0 for 9 on third down so far. This is third down and 9, and that is Barnhill in the arms of Stansley Mapunga, and in there late is Ross Forrest. Protection continues to break down for the Rebels. That's a loss of 4.
And Anthony, you've been really high on Stansley Mapunga. What do you see here?
The physical ability goes without saying, but you see a guy with his size and his speed that is nimble enough to dead leg. That's what we call it in the defensive line trade. The last time we saw him jump over the running back, that time he gave him what we call the dead leg, where you just bring that inside hip out as they're trying to cut block him. He has got the full arsenal of moves as an edge rusher.
Chase Lanford, the punt, already had one blocked here this afternoon. Gets that one off. The true freshman wide receiver, Brandon Carter, giving chase as the ball just goes out of bounds inside the 20 at the 19-yard line. 58-yard punt by Chase Lanford. TCU 42-6. Weather holding off at least for now in Fort Worth. TCU leading 42-6. It's been gray, it's been wet, but conditions playable, Sean, as Casey Ballhall leading the Horned Frogs back out of the field for the second possession of the second half. Toss sweep to Ed Wesley, putting his head down. Tough yardage out across the 25-yard line. Wesley picks up 6. Lots going on here at Amon G. Carter Stadium. Under construction, and almost a year ago, almost to the date, December 5th actually last year. Glad we weren't standing right here, because this is the stadium implosion. The West Grandstand imploded to make way for renovations that will take capacity here to around 50,000 as TCU turns the corner from the Mountain West Conference. Its final game in the Mountain West Conference today, heading into the Big 12 next season. Casey Ballhall to Antoine Hicks. Sidestepping Rebels for another TCU first down, gain of 10. After the implosion of the West Grandstand last year, the staff at TCU thought it would be a good idea to leave something behind this time around. Yesterday in a ceremony, a time capsule was placed inside the walls of the renovated part of the stadium. It included various football paraphernalia, including Rose Bowl uniforms from last season. I recognize that media guide right there. #1 reading piece at our house. Seen TCU 4 times this season now, Sean. Getting to know these Horned Frogs, and that's Casey Ballhall. 6-yard gain to freshman wide receiver Cam White. 3 freshmen with receptions now. Brandon Carter, David Porter, and now Cam White.
You know, the one exciting thing, if you're part of this Horned Frog fan base, is so many of these pieces return next year. You know, Josh Boyce is coming back, Sky Dawson, Brandon Carter, all 3 of those running backs, Casey Ballhall, the quarterback. I mean, the nucleus is here. They're going to have to replace some parts on the offensive line, but the skill positions are set with very talented group of players.
This is Matthew Tucker. TCU gain of 3. You talk TCU talent. I'm looking ahead to next year a little bit. Talent-wise, where would you put the Horned Frogs in the Big 12 Conference? Middle of the pack, top tier? What do you think?
You know, based upon Gary Patterson and his track record, I think you have to put him somewhere in the top half. You know, probably a little bit behind Oklahoma, you would think. But you look at Oklahoma State, they're going to lose Brandon Wheaton. Justin Blackman's going to graduate. You know, so they're going to go in there. They have so much returning. I think they have a chance to compete for the Big 12 title next year.
3rd down and 1. Play action. Ball haul across his body, wants the tight end, Brock, and he's got him. Logan Brock, gain of 36 yards.
That's my guy, Paul, Logan Brock. Maybe the toughest tight end in the Mountain West Conference. Underutilized, I believe, as a wide receiver. You're going to see him just run a seam route. And as Casey Paul Hall leaves the pocket, he's eyeing Logan Brock the whole way. He's got enough arm strength to fit it down there to him, and Logan Brock has got soft enough hands. Interesting story about Brock. High school teammates with Josh Boyce and, of course, his brother Tanner Brock. They played against Casey Paul Hall in these Texas high school playoffs a couple of different times, and he's also high school teammates with RG3. Robert Griffin III from Baylor competed with him at the quarterback position before Griffin finally took over.
Matthew Tucker showing some patience.
Probably a smart decision by their high school football coach. But I talked to the offensive coordinator here at TCU, Justin Fuente, and I said, you know, we've done TCU 4 times this season. The most disappointing aspect of covering this team is you guys have not found a way to get the football to Logan Brock. You know, I think Logan Brock has the skill set to go to the next level and be a good complementary tight end.
He's a guy with that nasty element to his play. He's a guy with a mean streak. You like to see that in old school Mike Ditka type of tight end. That's what I love about Logan Brock's game. When you watch him on film, he's the guy finishing blocks. He's the guy out there being chippy. You know, maybe occasionally doing something that's outside the bounds of the rule book a bit. He occasionally gets caught for it, but there's a mentality about playing the game of football, especially with a program who's established themselves as a physically dominant ground and pound type of run team. That's why Logan Brock jumps out on film to me, even without receiving the football too much throughout his career. But he's a guy who jumps off the film when you're watching him play the game.
You know, Paul, my question for you is, Anthony old enough to make a Mike Ditka tight end reference?
Chicago, Sean, Chi-Town.
He is from the Chicago area. You saw the numbers there. TCU absolutely dominating here in the third quarter, still with 4 minutes remaining, and Ed Wesley wants 6 more, dragging at UNLV Rebels into the end zone with him. Touchdown, TCU.
You know, I've been talking about it since before the game started. I mean, all 3 of these running backs, you know, they do such a great job at the point of attack, yards after contact. Ed Wesley has that low center of gravity, real powerful runner. I know Quentin Pointer, the safety at UNLV, is like, what do you got to do? I mean, he comes in with momentum. He's aggressive. Still not enough to prevent Ed Wesley from scoring for this TCU offense.
Ross Evans with another extra point. Ed Wesley now with 5 rushing touchdowns on the season. The Horned Frogs have been inside the red zone 4 times, 4 touchdowns, 49-6, 3:57 left in the third. Ed Wesley scoring the most recent touchdown for the 18th ranked TCU Horned Frogs, and TCU on top 49-6. 3:57 left in the third quarter. Ryan DiNucci, see if he can kick it off and get the tackle, like he did a little bit earlier in the second half. Deontay Purvis bringing it back for the Rebels. Waiting for blocks, doesn't get him, and he goes down at the 28-yard line. The NHL on Versus continues. Monday at 7:30 Eastern, the Coyotes face off with the Blackhawks. Then on Tuesday, the Red Wings storm St. Louis to battle the Blues. Hockey is here on Versus. And we just may have some inclement weather here. See if they can hold off here. 3:50 left in the third quarter, and that might be wishful thinking there, Sean. See that picture just outside the stadium.
Looks pretty bad.
And I'm glad you guys are so concerned about me down here.
That actually didn't come into mind.
It did not.
You're a tough guy.
I was actually looking forward to seeing how much mud those $700 of slacks have on them.
Sean, you went to the private school. You went to Tulane. What's that tell you?
I know that yellow and red is not very good, and I see a lot of yellow and red.
That makes sense to me.
See how you simplify that for you Iowa graduates?
For Anthony and myself, yeah. That means Anthony's going to get wet and cold down there. I hope he's dressed for it.
I spoke to a man in the stands at halftime, and I'll be honest, he was wearing overalls, and he told me, I'll be as happy as a pig in slop with a direct quote from this individual at halftime if we get some rain in the second half.
We just got some Bradley Randall there. You've seen Tim Cornette, Deonze Bradford. That is Bradley Randall for 17. His father, Lenny Randall, former Major League Baseball star.
And they like Bradley Randall also. He came into the game averaging over 4 yards per carry. You know, they have 3 running backs of their own that they feel like are going to be an integral part of this offense as this program moves forward.
Randall has got 2 games this season with 19 carries, so not just a spot duty back behind Cornette. Bradford seen plenty of time. As it'll be 2nd down 5 now for UNLV, trailing 49-6. Keeping it on the ground. More Randall to Karen Cuba. Nice job at coming up and striking from his safety position. Kenny Kane also there, limiting that to a gain of 3.
Bobby Hauck, in a way, has tried to rebuild this program from scratch, changing the body types, changing the offensive scheme. We're seeing them running the pistol here this season, even differently than they did last year. And so it takes a little bit of time. There's a process here. We talked about the success that he had at the FCS level. He knows the system he wants to run. He knows how he wants this program to move forward. But even something as simple as having his defensive linemen weigh a little bit less, having his running backs be a little bit bigger, recruiting the type of talent that Bobby Hauck wants to have here, that's the initial step, and then we figure out whether or not his system actually works.
UNLV going for it now on 4th and a yard. Taylor Barnhill, the quarterback, I formation behind him. Randall met just as he got to the stick to Karen Cuba and Kenny Kane there. And I think UNLV will get a favorable spot, and that's a 1st down. But Kenny Kane, he come up and hit you, and it's not very often where your leading tackler from a year ago, Tanner Brock, can get hurt the first game of the season, leave for the rest of the year, and you just roll out a Kenny Kane, and they haven't missed a beat.
And they'll get Tanner Brock back next year. Kenny Kane returns. You know, he's from a very accomplished high school program in New Orleans, and John Curtis. And those are kind of guys you want as a part of your program. They come from winning programs in high school. They bring that winning attitude and mindset to the collegiate level, and, you know, it just starts to permeate throughout your roster. Gary Patterson's very excited about Tanner Brock and Kenny Kane next year.
But Kenny Kane was a starter on 4 consecutive state title teams. You made mention of how successful he was in Metairie, Louisiana. That's 4 in a row in football, and also was on a 4x100 track team that won a state title in Louisiana. Randall up the middle, continuing to run hard. And to Karen Cuba, continuing to show up along with Stanley Mapunga, and that's a Rebel gain of 5.
You know, Paul, it's a different type of athlete than when we played. Anytime your inside linebacker is a part of your 4x100 relay team, times are changing.
Stanley Mapunga leading this team in tackles for loss, sacks. Been active behind the line of scrimmage on this day as we're now inside a minute left in the 3rd quarter. Randall now just inside the 35-yard line, gain of 3. Tackle made by Devin Johnson.
It's a sign that TCU could be Big 12 ready with that discussion we were having just a moment ago, where you can replace a Tanner Brock with a guy like Kenny Kane. As Takarian Cuba has left the lineup at different points, they can replace him with a talented freshman like Jonathan Anderson. Gary Patterson has tried to build the depth of this program in anticipation of going to a BCS conference. It wasn't the Big East for very long, but now they're headed to the Big 12, and he knows what they have to be able to do.
10 seconds now remaining and counting in the 3rd quarter. Randall with a 1st down and then some, putting his head down to finish that run. Saying hello to Devin Johnson there after he had the 1st down for a Rebel gain of 22.
And Paul, I don't know if you recognize it, but the score, just because it has changed, the level of contact has not diminished. This is an old school 9-on-7 drill that's occurring right now at Amon G. Carter Stadium.
That's the end of the 3rd quarter of play with the score.
3 quarters in the books. Bradley Randall running hard for the Rebels. TCU comes out of the halftime locker room strong, increasing that lead. We head to the 4th with the Horned Frogs on Senior Day leading 49-6. Rebels on the move as we begin the 4th quarter. TCU on top 49-6. The 1st down line is presented by Geico. Bradley Randall continues to lead this team down the field, fighting inside the 10-yard line, gain of 4. This drive now is 11 plays for UNLV. It's covered 63 yards, and Bradley Randall has all 63 of those yards. Third string tailback here for Bobby Houck's team behind Deonze Bradford and also Tim Cornett. UNLV's previous 8 possessions led to only 15 total yards, so 63-yard drive. Impressive for UNLV today. Impressive TCU defense to Karen Cuba there. Stanley Mapunga, gain of 1 to bring up 3rd down.
Got to be impressed with the way UNLV continuing to battle in this football game. 3 freshmen, 2 juniors up front in the offensive line. You just look at the team as a whole. Last week had a 14-0 lead, came out strong against San Diego State, a program headed to a bowl game this season. And now here today, they came out strong, had an early lead, although it was short-lived against TCU.
3rd down and 5. The Rebels need to get just inside the 3-yard line to pick up a first. Devin Johnson in from the defensive backfield. David Johnson there as well. And again to Karen Cuba, seemingly in on every play on this drive, and that's a gain of 2. Devin Johnson has emerged as a force in the defensive backfield for TCU as we see to Karen Cuba come off the field. 26 Johnson. And also 41 Jonathan Anderson, not really regulars on the defense earlier this season, but emerging mid-season. And now major contributors. Here now 4th down and 3. And Nolan Cohorst attempting his 3rd field goal of the afternoon.
And I know Bobby Hart was very successful at Montana, but I'm not sure I agree with kicking a field goal here. I don't know what 9's going to do for you when another team has 49.
Delay a game, offense, 5-yard penalty, 4th down.
And Bobby Houck's Rebels yet to score a touchdown here this afternoon with their best chance right now, but on 4th down, and it'll now be 4th down and 8. Nolan Cohorst will attempt to put 3 more points on the board. Taylor Barnhill, the quarterback, freshman out of Rome, Texas, making his 2nd start. Lost at New Mexico and having a tough go here at 18th ranked TCU. Cohorst now from 29 yards away. And Nolan Cohorst is having a fine outing. He is 3 for 3, but however, UNLV still in single digits. TCU leads by 40. Third field goal for UNLV, making it 49-9. 12:59 left in the 4th quarter. The TCU Horned Frogs ranked 18th in the BCS, needing this victory today to secure a 3rd consecutive outright Mountain West Conference title. What a way to go out it would be, as the Horned Frogs say goodbye to the Mountain West after today and say hello to the Big 12. That was Greg McCoy, senior on senior day, in the first half with a 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Not going to get his hands on this one. No Horned Frog will, but that's okay. They'll take the penalty. And the excellent field position that comes along with it. For all the latest college football news and rumors, log on to collegefootballtalk.nbcsports.com. From conference to conference and coast to coast, College Football Talk is your entertaining source for all your college football news. College Football Talk at nbcsports.com. TCU offense going to be led by Matt Brown from the 40-yard line, thanks to the kickoff going out of bounds. New tailback number 22 is Jercel Fort. Matt Brown keeps it himself, showing a little burst up the middle, getting just past the 40-yard line. Gain of 2, and Matt Brown has been the change-up to Casey Paul Hall here this season. Hasn't played a lot, but every time he's played, he's come in and really focused on the run game.
Yeah, he does a better job of understanding the keys with his zone read aspect of their running game, and just think he's a better pure runner. You know, you mentioned Jercel Fort, who's in the game. You know, Gary Patterson and Justin Fuente raved about, you know, what a great kid he's been, a guy that moved around, played in some different positions. Said today they'd love the opportunity to get him some carries on his senior day.
And that's Andre Dean, the transfer from UCLA, for a gain of 5. Penalty marker down.
Personal foul, face mask, defense, 15-yard penalty, automatic, first down.
Now if the TCU needs the help, kicking the ball out of bounds, they start on the 40. Face mask penalty, and just like that, they're already into UNLV territory. Casey Paul Hall going to watch the rest of the game from the sideline. 15 out of 22, 185, not huge numbers, but 0 interceptions, didn't turn the football over. Just kind of managed the game. Special teams touchdown, defensive touchdown, running game's been strong.
Unspectacular performance in difficult weather conditions, especially in the first half, but as we talked to Gary Patterson this week and have over the course of the last month or so of the regular season, they want Casey Paul Hall to turn into a consistent football player, to turn into a guy who puts importance on playing the quarterback position the way it should be played. I mean, they talk at a very high level about how you have to respect the position of quarterback and what it means to the rest of the football team, just thinking about the guy he replaced in Andy Dalton. There's a high standard that's been set, not just for the play on the field, but for the way you interact with your teammates and the way you practice and prepare day in and day out.
More on that high standard set by Gary Patterson here coming up momentarily. Matt Brown keeping it himself as he does so well. TCU first down now. That was a gain of 10 yards. To the 23-yard line. Gary Patterson win today, 4 consecutive with at least 10 and most wins since 2006. Gary Patterson trailing only Chris Peterson. And last month, coming from behind, the Horned Frogs knocked off Boise State in Boise by 1 point. Courageous call to win that one as Gary Patterson going for 2. And the Horned Frogs coming through and leaving Boise with that huge win. 6 wins to 0 losses in conference play. And that's Matt Brown throwing a strike. Freshman to freshman, Brandon Carter on the receiving end, a gain of 14.
And you guys are talking about Casey Paul Hall and his development. Matt Brown is a good player in his own right, and he's taking advantage of his opportunity here to get a chance to get some playing time. But one former TCU quarterback who I think is breathing a lot easier today is Andy Dalton. Justin Fuente mentioned the last game after the Colorado State game was over, he got a text from Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton was ecstatic that they won, but he was even happier that Casey Paul Hall didn't throw a lot of touchdowns because he covets that single-season touchdown pass record and looks like it's going to be safe.
Yeah, 3 more touchdowns needed. Now the bowl game will count, whatever bowl it is for TCU. So Casey Paul Hall, 3 more touchdown passes will catch Andy Dalton in those 27 touchdowns he had a year ago. That was Andre Dean with the carry.
You know, I've been in that position before, Paul. I think there's a concerted effort at Tulane with Pat Ramsey as quarterback to try and break every record that I set when I graduated.
I would imagine so. Set the bar high, let the guys chase after it a little bit.
My texts and emails fell on deaf ears.
2nd down 10 now. We're inside 10 minutes. Matt Brown keeping it himself. UNLV defense forcing him back inside after a gain of 4. So Matt Brown this season, he was happy to get that opportunity to throw it. As much as he's played, he was only 2 for 4 entering this game. Injured Rebel on the field is Quentin Porter, number 10, senior out of Fort Myers, Florida. Quentin Porter entering this game with a team best 39 career starts.
And Porter's a player that was really highly regarded coming out of high school when he first got to this program. Started as a freshman and sophomore outside on the corner. Missed last season, was hurt on the 4th play from scrimmage in 2010 in Bobby Hauck's first year with this program. So now he's back, and they've moved him inside to safety. He's put a couple of pounds on and really solidified himself as a physical presence there at the safety position.
Quentin Porter and the Rebel defense. Been a long outing this afternoon, trailing 49-9. Good to see Porter walking off the field, jogging off the field by himself. Under his own power. It's now 3rd down and 6 against Bobby Hauck's defense. Do not be surprised if Matt Brown keeps it himself. 5 rushing touchdowns coming into this game. That's only on 20 carries. Batting 250. Not bad when you're a quarterback running the ball.
Not bad.
Quarterback draw. Matt Brown, touchdown, Horned Frogs.
Good job of securing the snap by Matt Brown. Almost the same exact field position where they called this play with Casey Paul earlier in the contest. But you see, good job of catching the snap that was a little high. And you can just see he's such a natural runner. Looks a little different when he decides to tuck the football than Casey Paul does.
Matt Brown gets in on the scoring act. TCU now up over 50. Ross Evans good with the extra points. Matt Brown has 6 rushing touchdowns this season. The Horned Frogs have a 56-9 lead. Backup quarterback Matt Brown with a rushing touchdown for the Horned Frogs. And TCU now leading 56-9, getting ever so close to a 3rd consecutive outright Mountain West Conference title. Deontay Purvis bringing it back for UNLV. Out to the 34-yard line.
I'll admit it, Paul, on my senior day, I came out of the tunnel and cried like a baby. Didn't make half the plays that these guys are making out here today. Greg McCoy, 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Great blocking by the return unit. And Chris Gardner got his first start of the season. Took it back for 6.
On your senior day, did you claim Floyd or Rosedale there, Anthony, or no?
Actually, we were at home against Northwestern, played at Minnesota the following week.
There you go. Okay. Kenny Kane there, linebacker for TCU, keeping that gain to just 4 as we're now inside 9 minutes. TCU leading 56-9. You see the final there, Southern Miss over Houston. And that is important here inside this stadium here because TCU outside shot at the BCS, ranked 18th. If they win their conference outright, which they're on their way to doing, and if they move into the top 16, which they may do next week, they're in consideration for a 3rd consecutive BCS opportunity.
And Paul, I've been taking the temperature of the fans down here throughout A&G Carter Stadium.
Offense,
most of them,
second down.
Most of them are saying that no matter what bowl game they go to, they will be in tow with the TCU Horned Frogs. But if they go to a BCS game, the percentage certainly jumps up that much higher because to be able to go to 3 consecutive BCS bowl games, the fans down here at field level, they do realize the significance of it.
2nd down 11 now for UNLV. Delayed handoff to Bradley Randall. Struck by Jonathan Anderson at no gain. All signs point to, if it's not a BCS bowl, it's more likely that it won't be a BCS bowl. All signs point to TCU going to San Diego to play in the Poinsettia Bowl as we take a look at the bowl affiliations with the Mountain West Conference. Feels like Boise State, a top 10 team, even though a top 10 team that TCU did knock off on Boise's blue turf, would get that invitation to the Mako Las Vegas Bowl. 3rd down and 10. Taylor Barnhill, that's been a theme today. Doesn't see anything he likes. Goes down to the backfield, loss of 2. Braylon Broughton, backup defensive end, number 99. That's the 3rd sack of this afternoon. Taylor Barnhill jogging off the field, and unique quarterback resume this season. Started 1 game, also spent quite a bit of time as an H-back, a move fullback / tight end. And it feels like he's going to be moving back toward that position in spring football from what we've been told. 3rd downs today. TCU holding UNLV to 0 for 14. Brandon Carter back deep to receive. And will not get a chance to do so. The Rebels down the ball at the 30-yard line after a gain of 37. 6:40 left. TCU in command on senior day, leading 56-9. TCU Horned Frogs 6 minutes 40 seconds away from a third consecutive Mountain West Conference title and also a fourth consecutive season of at least 10 wins. This would move them to 7-0 in the Mountain West Conference and 10-2 overall. Matt Brown continues to spell Casey Paul Hall at quarterback. That's Andre Dean for a gain of 1. Let's take a look at the Buffalo Wild Wings game reset. Greg McCoy, senior cornerback, making his presence felt. Special teams, 99-yard kickoff return, his second kickoff return for touchdown this season. In the last 3 meetings, TCU absolutely owning UNLV in the defense that Greg McCoy plays on. Big-time performance today. The Rebels have converted 0 out of 14 times on third down. They only have 159 total yards this afternoon.
Paul, I've seen almost enough football to know if you go 0 on third down, it's very difficult to sustain drives.
I would say so. That's a gain of 3 for Andre Dean. Bobby Hawk. Losing is not something he is used to. Coming here from Montana in 7 seasons, leading them to an 80-17 record, 3 national title games. In his final 4 seasons, 31-3 in conference. And before he became the head coach at Montana, spent time with Rick Neuheisel at Washington and Colorado, programs that were going to bowl games annually. So a season with only 2 wins, it's not something Bobby Hauck has been a part of in his coaching career. This is Jercel Fort for 3 yards. As we approach the 5-minute mark in the 4th quarter, TCU in its final game in the Mountain West Conference, moving very close to a 24th consecutive conference victory. Haven't lost in Mountain West Conference play November of 2008. Back deep is Eric Tawilo Mavaha. Nice move to stay on his feet. Penalty marker comes in on the 18-yard line. Johnny Fobbs, the senior, Texas native, jogging off the field. Our referee this afternoon is Alan Eck.
During the return, illegal block in the back, number 26 of the receiving team. Half distance to the goal. First down, UNLV.
Rebel offense going to make an effort here to get into double digits, trailing 56-9. A lot of smiles on the TCU sidelines. 10-win season. And you remember this feeling, Sean. Anthony, you do too. That feeling where the season's over, you get to exhale just a little bit before that bowl practice kicks in.
Just a little bit. And Gary Patterson is a guy that, you know, feels that making a bowl is not enough. He says he really wants to win the bowl game. Before a player, there is a little difference in the practice. You know, it's a little more of a period of enjoyment leading up to that bowl game, especially if they get the opportunity to go to San Diego, California, which is one of the more beautiful cities in America.
And that would be to play in the Poinsettia Bowl. And I thought it was refreshing to spend time with Gary Patterson yesterday, because many times you have a coach or a program with big things on the horizon, but will only discuss what's happening that day or that weekend. And Gary Patterson very open, talking about spring football and getting ready for the Big 12 and how excited he is and how he's thinking about that and why he's thinking about that, how competitive they have to be in spring football to get ready for what's coming.
You know, he says he tries to plan things at least 6 months in advance. He says he already has his bowl schedule printed up. He has his spring football schedule printed up. He knows exactly how many days they're going to have to lift in between the second semester beginning and spring practice. And, you know, he feels like he has a good core group of young guys returning. Feels like it's a big off season for them, though. They really have to get bigger, faster, stronger. And I know that's cliche, but he say that starts right there in that weight room and on that conditioning field.
He was awfully descriptive in talking about spring football, talking about how physical it would be, said it would be a meat grinder. Wants to see who his tough leaders are. He feels like when his team's been at its best here the last decade, they've had tough physical defenders, and he wants to find out every day who that's going to be next season. Taylor Barnhill keeping it himself. Give credit to Barnhill for continuing to play hard and run hard. Devin Johnson there. That's a gain of 4.
And Paul, he's talked to us about the slow start that TCU had this regular season, and he felt like it took them a good month or so into the regular season until they got through their first bye week to really get their legs back under them. They had a really difficult training camp, and it was hot, really hot here in Texas, and they didn't have an indoor facility that they could really utilize consistently to be able to get indoors and out of the elements. And he feels like if he can prepare his football team to be able to practice, to be able to tough out the elements and build up that callus that we talk about building as football players, it will help them moving forward into Big 12 play.
Lansford punting to Brandon Carter. Now inside UNLV territory and looking to come across the left side of the field and cuts it back up the middle. Nice piece of returning by the freshman wide receiver. TCU leads 56-9, little over 2 minutes left in the fourth. College Football on Versus is presented by Lowe's. For all your home improvement needs, Lowe's, never stop improving. And by K Jewelers, the #1 jewelry store in America. Every kiss begins with K. And by Foster's Australian for beer. Longhorns in the stockyards there, Sean. Just outside of Fort Worth. Horned Frogs getting it done in a big way inside Amon G. Carter Stadium. The running back there, Andre Dean. Senior Greg McCoy. And Josh Boyce, underclassmen, getting ready to douse Gary Patterson. That's got to feel good for those players. It not only means winning game, winning season, but Coach Patterson is, he gives them some tough love every day.
And he knows it's coming. You can see that head's on a swivel. I don't know why coaches just don't embrace the Gatorade shower. They're always trying to run from it and outsmart the guys who are trying to douse them. It only happens when you win, so I don't see how that's a bad thing for a head coach.
Rick Settle, the tailback behind Matt Brown.
Andre Dean, the ball carrier.
Rick Settle in at quarterback.
Tackle made by Tony Munro.
He tried to get away.
If at first you don't succeed, try again.
It's got to feel good. Third consecutive Mountain West Conference title, 10 wins. And hey, you can be wet and cold. Your team was not penalized today, Coach. That can make you feel warm on the inside.
Hey, I like the creativity. They faked him with the empty Gatorade jug the first time and got him with the second one.
Precisely. There was some stem in disguise going with the Gatorade buckets. They've learned well from Gary Patterson.
The clock will continue to run, and that will likely be the final play of the game. Seconds will tick away. Gary Patterson's Horned Frogs, your Mountain West Conference champions outright for the third consecutive season. What a job of persevering by Coach Patterson's Horned Frogs, starting the season 0-1 with the loss at Baylor. Tank Carter's defensive unit, Greg McCoy's defensive unit, giving up over 500 yards of total offense and 50 points. A couple of weeks later, they lose at home to SMU. And sitting at 3-2, everyone wondering what kind of season is this going to be for TCU after going 25-1 the last 2 years. 6 consecutive wins, including a signature come-from-behind win at Boise State. The Horned Frogs now 10-2 and conference champions once again. Gary Patterson joined by our Anthony Herron.
Gary, I can't quite tell what flavor that is, but it smells like victory. How's it feel?
Well, they missed me with the first one. I was quick enough to get away from that one, but not the second one. They had thought that one out.
And you guys have gotten to do this for a few years. 3 consecutive seasons, outright Mountain West Conference champions. Now, with your players in this Gatorade shower, did you know what was coming?
Well, yeah, because, you know, they chased me on the field at the Rose Bowl, and they actually circled behind way back, and then they also had a second one if I ran. So I got away from one and didn't get away from the other.
And Garrett, we've gotten to talk to you a lot covering your games this season about where this program is right now. With the opportunity for potentially another BCS bowl game, how would you describe where you sit?
Well, we don't have any control, but we did what we could do. You know, I think you got to take for granted. I thought we didn't get enough credit going to Boise and winning that ball game against a team that hadn't lost there. And that's a very good football team. So we'll see what the fans think. We'll see what the voters think. And know that we won a conference championship, did what we could do, and wait to see what happens tomorrow.
It's been a fun ride to watch you, Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Paul?
Senior day here, 19 seniors going out now with 46 wins as a class, the most ever in TCU school history. Casey Paul Hall, solid afternoon. Team now 10-2. And at number 18 in the BCS, conference champions. They'll wait and see what happens now because Houston lost. Will TCU move into the top 16, which would give them a chance to go to the BCS or BCS Bowl for a third consecutive season? 59-6 or 56-9 the final here, Sean. What stood out to you the most and what was a dominating performance start to finish?
Well, I think the trio of running backs from TCU, all outstanding in their own right, but as a collective group, as good as any in the entire country. Wayman James, Ed Wesley, Matthew Tucker, all do the same thing. They get yards after contact. All powerful, aggressive runners. They initiate the contact. You're not going to tackle any of the three with arm tackles, and I think this UNLV defense will attest to that. Matthew Tucker, who's more of the goal line short yardage back, even getting extensive long yardage runs. You see Ed Wesley running through tackles from this UNLV defense. All three return for this TCU football team. This will be a focal point and a strength of the 2012 Horned Frog Club as well.
A couple of guys that will not be back for TCU, joined now by Anthony Herron.
And I joked a bit about my senior day, two guys who starred in today's ball game, Chris Gardner, Greg McCoy. And Chris, you've had to be behind some of the great linebackers in this program's history a bit throughout your career. But how about the effort today? You got the start and you made a big play.
Yeah, I mean, I really contribute everything to the older linebackers. Everything we do, we say it's a legacy here at TCU, especially with the linebackers with Darryl Washington and Jason Phillips. I mean, all those guys really taught, and I just try to take a little piece of all their game and put it into mine.
And you've played your role in one of the great stretches in the history of this program. How do you feel like you guys have been able to get to the point you are now?
Really just hard work. The foundation of this program, Coach Patterson, how he makes all of us work. And there's no coach in the country better than him at turning boys to men. And that's what he does for football players. He can turn an average football player into a great one.
Thanks for your time, Chris. Let me have your teammate, Mr. McCoy, step in here. One of the top kick returners in college football today. How sweet was that with that 99-yarder?
Oh man, it was more than I could ask for, man. I just try to come out and just go out with a bang, and it felt good to be running and just giving back to the guys who blocked for me, man, and just the guys who came before me, Aaron Brown and Corey Rogers, and just great returns that came before me. I just try to give back, and it was a great feeling.
Greg, you were one of the most experienced players coming back in this year's secondary. Some early struggles early in the season. How did you guys get it turned around and get back to playing defense?
Well, one of the things we always talk about is tradition, and Coach Patterson do a great job of fighting against adversity, and he instilled that into us, so we just took the things that we did wrong and we learned from them, and it made us a better team in the end.
They announced the score during the game today that Houston got upset by Southern Miss. Did you guys hear that here in the arena? And if so, what was the reaction?
Well, actually, we heard the reaction of the fans first, and then we knew that it had to be some great things going on outside of this stadium. But listening to the score and everything, it made us feel good. It was kind of fuel to our fire, so we're just trying to leave no doubt.
Are you looking forward to the potential for another BCS Bowl?
We are. We definitely are. But, you know, we don't have control over those things. We'll just handle the things we can, and which we did today. So hopefully everything works out fine.
Congratulations on a magnificent career.
Thank you. Thank you.
Greg McCoy, 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Casey Paul Hall, the starter for every game for the Horned Frogs this season. Team now 10-2. Celebration on the field. The celebration going to continue inside the locker room. Third consecutive outright conference title, Mountain West Conference title for the TCU Horned Frogs. What an excellent way to wave goodbye to the Mountain West Conference and say hello to the Big 12. And Sean, we saw them pick up their first win of the season at Air Force back in September. Final win of the regular season here this afternoon against UNLV. How has this team grown the most to you?
You know, I think defensively they've really come together as a unit. You know, in that Air Force game, they gave up some big runs. You see them today, aggressive, violent, tackling the football, everyone rallying to the football. They really bought into what Coach Patterson is teaching. I think something that really jumps out to me, you talk to two seniors, Chris Gardner, Greg McCoy. They mentioned Coach Patterson about 8 times in 2 minutes. That shows you the respect and admiration they have for their head coach.
Easy to respect a head coach who now has 4 consecutive seasons with at least 10 wins. Want to say thanks to all the great men and women who've been a part of the Versus College Football productions this season. It's been a lot of fun, Sean. I've enjoyed it.
It has.
Also, a big thanks to Anthony Herron on the sideline. I'm Paul Burmeister saying so long from Fort Worth, Texas. And remember, don't miss NFL Turning Point this evening with Dan Patrick. That's at midnight right here on Versus. Final score from Fort Worth, TCU 56 and UNLV 9.